Welcome to What's Cooking, New Ulm. I'm Rebecca Fliszar, the dietitian with the Heart of New Ulm Project, working to reduce and eventually eliminate heart attacks in the 56073 zip code. Over the past month, we've seen some great recipes. Hopefully, you've been able to try them in your own kitchen, and April will not be a disappointment. Today, our cook is Pat Novak. Welcome, Pat.
Oh, thanks, Becca.
And you have a great recipe for us today. Tell us a little bit about what you'll be cooking and why you chose this recipe for today's show.
It's called chicken with an apple sauté. It's a recipe that I was looking for something with to do with pheasant or chicken that had a little bit of a gravy. Try to keep the meat a little bit moist.
Great. And as Pat just mentioned, this is a great recipe to use with pheasant as well. We will be using chicken today, but during the fall, as those pheasants come in, make sure you pull this recipe back out. So let's start walking through this recipe a little bit, Pat.
So one of the first things that we'll do is we've got about a pound of chicken breast, and we're going to cut that up into about half-inch pieces.
Now, Pat has already washed these off. Make sure you always wash your chicken breast first, just to make sure they're clean and ready to go.
Probably one of the, as far as slicing size, it's really a preference to the individual. I think, as you'll see, we'll go through and saute this up, and depending on whether you have small children or whether you're comfortable with cutting it as you're eating it at the table, really will determine how big of a slice that you want.
Right, and you'll notice that Pat is using the boneless, skinless chicken breast. That's going to make it the leanest cut possible from the chicken and make it heart healthy. And that's always our goal on What's Cooking. You're going to notice too that this is going to be a very lean protein meal. So it's going to be lower in calories, lower in cholesterol, but high in protein. We're going to couple this at the end with a spaghetti squash, but this is our main source of protein and it's going to be an excellent dish. We're going to use a few different ingredients today that we haven't seen in the past, so pay close attention. You're going to get a different flavor from some of these unique recipes and ingredients as well.
So once we have this done, we'll go ahead and put it back in the bowl and season the chicken with a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm going to wash my hands first.
Okay. You may notice as you look at this recipe, Pat did go ahead and mention that you're going to want to have all your ingredients pretty well prepared ahead of time. It's going to make it easier once you start cooking your chicken. This recipe does go fairly quickly, so if you have your prep work done, you're going to be more successful. Now, Pat, could we use a regular table pepper, or do you recommend the freshly ground?
I like fresh ground just because from a flavor standpoint, and but you can use any kind of pepper. As a matter of fact, you could probably use any different type of seasoning if you had a preference for that. We put probably about an 1/8 teaspoon of fresh ground pepper, and then an 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and that's really to your preference then also.
Right. That does keep it within that low sodium guideline and make it a heart healthy recipe.
So I think the next thing that this will call for is we need one shallot, and we'll chop that up rather fine, and then the other thing will be our apple for the saute.
All right. You may remember from last month we did use the shallot as well. It is a hybrid between our onion and garlic and has a very unique flavor. So it's something that we maybe haven't used very often, but definitely something you want to start using in your recipes. It's really a great flavor, not too strong on the garlic, not too strong on the onion. Perfect for flavoring a dish like this.
Tricky little things with getting the skin off, but like he said, they are a milder flavor, as some people don't like strong flavor of onions. So you can use them in a lot of different recipes in place of onions. Like I said, they're a little bit tricky.
There you go. You're going to see that a shallot is smaller than the onion as well, but the flavor does carry out throughout the entire recipe. So it is a smaller quantity, but still a strong enough flavor to include in all of your portion sizes. You'll also notice that Pat switched his cutting board and his knife. We want to make sure we avoid cross-contamination. Anytime you're using that raw produce with raw meats like that chicken, we do need a separate cutting board and separate knife, just to make sure that we're staying clean and healthy. How small do you usually like to cut that? Are those going to be too strong or just right if you're biting into a shallot? What could we expect?
Oh, I think they're fairly mild. The reason I cut them a little bit finer is just because of the, the quickness of the recipe. So it doesn't take a whole lot to cook them once they're in. So
Great.
There we go.
Thank you.
I wonder if we should probably grab another bowl there, and we'll just put these in. There we go.
So a different combination that you wouldn't normally see in a recipe is the shallot and apple. Which of those two do you think is going to come out a little bit stronger in our flavor?
Well, I think there's so many different varieties of apples that it's a personal preference on what you want. The shallot is not going to be overwhelming at all, and it's really the flavor of the apple or the type of apple that you want. These are Fuji apples, and I like them because they're a little bit more firmer. Okay. And then they don't get soft and mushy when you're doing the sauté, and they have a great flavor. Some other firmer type apples, if that's what you like, it'd be like a Honey Crisp would be pretty good too.
Good. So basically, what's in season, or what you have for a preference? There's no specific apple for this recipe.
No specific apple. It's really a personal preference, and I think the other thing is that this time of year, it's a hit or miss in the grocery store with apples. So it's whatever you can find that works the best. Okay. Like I said, I like the Fuji just because of the flavor. So we'll just end up peeling this guy and then chopping him up. And also, again, it's a personal preference on how you want this sliced. If you want it into a thinner, smaller slice, I like to have them probably about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. It helps with how you're cooking them within the sauté. The other thing about an apple, if you did prepare an apple, 10-15 minutes before, you're going to end up seeing the apple discolor a little bit just because of the oxidation. So if that's a concern for you, then probably what you need to do is just slice your apples up and then put it in a bowl of water with some lemon juice, and that'll keep it from browning.
Good. So now, Pat, have you always been a healthy cooker, or is this something that's new in your household, or what brought on the change?
Well, I think I've always liked to cook. The reality check for myself was about 1.5 years ago. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And so you just get to the point where you don't have any choice. Okay. So, prior to this, the red flags are, being pre-diabetic. And if you listen to those, then you don't end up going through some of the things that I've gone through. But it is what it is. So you just have to get into a position of saying, I'm gonna control it rather than it control me, and that's really what led us to just a healthier lifestyle in cooking. So.
Good. And it is the mission at the Heart of New Ulm to promote those healthy lifestyle changes. We want to get to that unhealthy behavior before it gets to you. So, this cooking show and all of the Fit in 5, these are for your benefit. The Heart of New Ulm is working to make us one of the healthiest cities in the United States.
And we're just going to put that in with their shallots because they're going to go in at the same time as we cook this.
While Pat finishes chopping this apple, we're going to go and visit Holly and see what's new for her Fit in 5.
Welcome to today's Fit in 5. Have you ever wanted to build your own home exercise gym but thought you needed a lot of space and a lot of equipment to do it? I'm going to show you today some relatively inexpensive pieces of equipment that you can purchase at most large discount stores that don't cost a lot of money and they don't take a lot of space. We're going to start with the exercise ball, and you may have remembered a few weeks back we used this in our Fit in 5 segment. Again, this is a great piece of equipment. In fact, did you know that you can use an exercise ball as your office chair at work? It provides a lot of stimulation for your mind and for your core muscles. It's a great piece of equipment. You can even use it while you're watching TV at home, just sitting around. A ball like this is going to run about $25. Again, you can also buy them in kits. So you can find some kits that will sell the ball, and then they'll also sell a band along with it. And we'll talk a little bit about the band in just a minute. Other uses for this exercise ball, it's great for core muscle workout. Again, that's your abs and back, and we want a strong abs and back to help with our posture and all of our daily activities. So again, if you want to roll down on the ball, you can do a crunch this way. It's great for balance as well. You can sit on the ball and just practice lifting one leg up at a time. There's a variety of different uses, like I said, for this ball. The next piece of equipment we're going to talk about is the exercise band. These are going to sell for about $15 or so, again, at your local discount store. They provide a lot of resistance for some different activities. So you can actually step on the band in the middle, and you can do a bicep curl this way. You can do a raise for the shoulders this way, and you'll feel the resistance here again with the band. And you can even work the triceps or the back of the arm just by putting the band behind you and then extending up. So there's a variety of uses with the band as well. They come in different colors, and each color is actually going to provide a different level of resistance. The blue is going to be a little bit more challenging, green a little less. Other bands that you may have seen out there, and these are really inexpensive, are bands like this. So you can also use this kind of band same way. So we could do our chest muscles this way. So these bands, this type of band is something that you may be familiar with that's out there as well. The last thing I'm going to show you today is something that's pretty new. This is called a kettlebell. It's a weighted weight. It's a weighted weight with a handle on it. They call it a kettlebell. They come in a variety of different weights. These are going to cost anywhere from $10 to $40 based on how heavy they are. Again, you can find all of this at your local discount store. And with the kettlebell, they focus a lot on total body exercises. You can sit and do a bicep curl with your bell, but you can also do a full body exercise where you're squatting and raising at the same time. These are great for providing not only nice muscle toning and conditioning, but also a nice cardio workout. And you can get a good workout, in anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, depending on how long you have. So these are the pieces of equipment that are out there. You can also use, you can use dumbbells. You can buy those as well fairly inexpensively, about $15 or so. But give these a try. Like I said, they don't cost a lot, and they don't take up a lot of space, and you can get a really nice workout out of them. That's it for today's Fit in 5. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Holly. All right, our oil has been heated up now, Pat, and what's our next step?
Well, we put about a teaspoon of olive oil in, and we're just going to saute our chicken a little bit. That'll take probably about, I'd say 2 to 3 minutes.
All right.
But, really what we're looking for is to get it cooked through. If there's any question on it, you really want clear juices out of your chicken. You'll have it brown a little bit. Now, usually I do this on the stove, and I put it on a medium-high. We have an electric skillet here, and this works just fine. We're just going to make sure that we have this cooked through, and then we'll set it aside.
Great. And yes, we always want to make sure those juices do run clear. Chicken needs to be up at about 160 degrees to be out of the danger zone. So be very careful with your meat products. Make sure we're getting it out of that danger zone and keep our family safe.
One of the issues when you start cooking with too much within a frying pan, you end up steaming it rather than caramelizing the outside. Right. And a lot of times when you do that, you caramelizing the outside, like the little brown on the edges of the chicken, really adds a lot of flavor.
Great. You can really smell that pepper in there as well. With this recipe then, we are getting a portion of our fruit serving, we are getting a full serving of our protein, and we're also getting a lot of our carbohydrates. It in itself is a complete meal. Pat will go over some pairing here at the end for different things you can add with this meal, but this recipe alone could take the place of an entire meal.
Yeah, about this time I'm pairing with a nice Merlot.
Remember, all alcohol in moderation. A glass of wine at night does fit into the Mediterranean diet, so we'll take that, Pat.
Yeah, it doesn't take long once you once you get it going.
All right, so what else will you be adding then? Maybe you can walk us through a little bit with your cornstarch mix, and what is this going to entail?
So we want it. What you'll end up with is the sautéed apple and the chicken with kind of a gravy.
Okay.
And so the cornstarch is going to thicken it up. So we'll use 3 tablespoons of cornstarch with probably 4 tablespoons of water.
Okay.
And once this thing starts to go, it moves relatively quickly. So the next thing that we'll do is we'll add in the apples, the shallots, and some thyme. The thyme really adds a lot of flavor to it. So whether the apple or the onion, you know, there's some flavors in the background, but really thyme is kind of the overwhelming flavor.
So with our cornstarch mixture, what kind of consistency are we looking for?
Not a real thick type of sauce, but more of a coat the back of the spoon type of sauce.
Good.
We're getting close.
Okay, Pat, it looks like your chicken's almost all the way browned through.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit just so we don't get it too high, and we'll get our chicken off. All right. We'll just set that aside, and then we'll go ahead and we'll add the apple and the shallots.
So you want to leave the drippings in there and not rinse that frying pan, is that right?
Exactly right.
Okay. That's going to really add to that flavor. You'll notice too that Pat didn't have to add any extra olive oil to keep that pan moving. So that's really a benefit too, as we're limiting the fat and the overall health of this recipe. So that's a good idea to continue to use that same oil.
We're going to add about 3/4 of a teaspoon of dried thyme. There's a lot of flavor within this. Once the apples and the shallots start to cook, you'll also get a little bit of sweating and moisture created from that too. So,
thyme is one of our spices that offers great flavor and really enhances a recipe, but many of us haven't used before. Something that you want to start looking for in your recipes to find a place for, and you will find that you enjoy this herb quite a bit.
So we'll end up cooking this for about 1 to 3 minutes. And we want to, it doesn't really matter if we do start getting a little bit of brown bits on the bottom. It's just the caramelization of the apples and the onions. What we'll end up doing now after the 1 to 3 minutes, we'll add some apple cider, and that'll kind of deglaze the pan and bring a lot of those brown bits up and be a part of the sauce. So we're going to add our apple cider, and we want to bring that to a boil and let that cook for just a little bit. It'll reduce and kind of get some of those, like I said, deglaze the pan a little bit.
Okay.
And as we do that, then we need to be ready to add some chicken broth.
And we did choose the low sodium variety again, keeping with our principles of a heart-healthy diet. There's very little change in your flavor by going to the reduced sodium chicken broth, and yet it's much healthier for those with blood pressure issues or any other cardiac problems. So do look for that at the grocery store.
So we'll add 1.25 cups of this, and we'll get that back up to a boil then too.
Well, the smell is great. You do smell that thyme, but you can still have that fruity smell from the apple and the shallot in there as well, turning into a great recipe.
Yeah, so we'll get this up to a boil, and then we'll also let this cook for just a little bit so we can reduce that. In the meantime, then we're going to mix up our cornstarch and our thickener really. So I need to add a couple teaspoons of water to this.
So it really is a fairly thin consistency now, but it's going to make a difference in our recipe, right?
Yeah, so with any thickener, once you get it mixed up and you put it in there, you'll have to bring your sauce up to boil, and that really is what initiates the thickening. And like I said earlier, if it you can start with half this, and then if you feel like you need it to be a little bit more thick, then just double it up. So since we're going to be putting this with spaghetti squash, then we'll probably just end up going with a kind of a double thickener right from the beginning. So So as you can see, once we start, once this process starts, it starts and it just goes relatively quick.
Right. Yes, our start to finish time for this recipe really is between 15 and 20 minutes. Makes for a perfect recipe to use at home on a night with the family. Very healthy, great tasting, and doesn't take long to make.
So I don't know if you can see this or not, but you can see that it's starting to thicken up. It's not a real, it's a little bit of a cloudy sauce, but it's not not like a brown gravy type of thing.
Okay.
So once that starts to thicken up, then we turn this down to low.
And what are we looking for in those apples? What is our measure to finish this sauce? What are we looking for? The apples to be tender or the thickening?
Well, I think that it kind of comes back to the type of apple. So I wouldn't judge it on the apple. It's really about the thickening. And once you get that thickness and you turn it down to low, now we're going to add the sour cream. We'll add the mustard. The mustard adds a lot of flavor. And then we'll add the chicken back in, get that heated up because it has been sitting off to the side for a few minutes, and then we'll be really ready.
So, great.
Yep.
You'll notice as well that with this mustard powder, or the coarse ground mustard, it doesn't have the true mustard flavor that you would think of out of our yellow jar. It does enhance the recipe and make it really flavorful. And even if you're not a mustard fan, it's something you need to keep included into this recipe. You'll be pleasantly surprised with its outcome.
And really, some different types of mustards too, where you can have a hotter mustard and or a spicier type mustard. But the mustard, like you said, really does add a lot of flavor. So this is, a lot of times when people take a look at this recipe, and you put that sour cream in there, you just need to whisk that through because it looks a little bit lumpy right now, but just whisk it in and it turns out really nice.
Pat did use the low-fat sour cream. Again, keeping with the heart-healthy principles. You'll notice that it's not going to affect the consistency and really won't affect the taste of this recipe. It's still very creamy and enjoyable, but we are going to reduce that overall saturated fat and cholesterol intake by going to the low-fat sour cream. Oh, sure, that's starting to stand up very nice.
Yeah.
That caramelization too is really adding a lot to the appearance of this recipe.
Yeah, even the mustard, the mustard adds some depth to it, with the mustard seeds in there. So that's looking pretty good. Just make sure that as you're whisking through that you get the sour cream kind of broken up and incorporated within the sauce. So now we'll end up adding our chicken back in.
All right.
And we want to heat that through.
Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about the spaghetti squash that you're going to be serving with this recipe?
Well, being diabetic, it's always a challenge to try to find something that would, in a sense, replace pasta. You get choices on whole wheat pasta and stuff, and I'm kind of a foodie, so watching the Food Network and ended up seeing spaghetti squash. So we like squash, but never really have used spaghetti squash. So started using that instead of pasta, and it really surprised me as number one, it's good. Number two, it does act like pasta when you have it within a dish, and it's a great alternative choice.
Great.
So.
That's right. Spaghetti squash is actually part of the winter squash family, and it's going to be higher in fiber and very much lower in carbohydrates. So it's a great fit for a diabetic. It's also a great fit for anybody who enjoys pasta, but doesn't need all of the calories associated with a regular pasta. So Pat did bring a little bit of that along, and you can plate that as well.
Okay. So we're done, Becca. I think
Okay. So let's go ahead and grab your spaghetti squash, and we'll take a look at how that came out. And maybe you want to just take a minute to tell us how you got that out of your squash as well. Probably the biggest hurdle for people is to understand where to get it from and how to take it out.
So this is a spaghetti squash. The way that we prepare it is just split it in half, seed it out, I take a kind of a casserole dish, put it face down, fill the casserole dish with about half an inch of water, and cook that at 375 for probably about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the size of the squash. But if you take a knife and pierce the skin, if it goes through easily, then it's done.
Good.
Once it's done, then just take a fork and scrape it out, and then you end up with this type of spaghetti.
All right,
squash.
well, let's get that onto our plate and put these two together. As I mentioned, you can have the original chicken sauté with apples alone, or you can add it with the spaghetti squash to make it an even more filling and complete meal. There you go. Good portion size. All right.
And then we'll just go ahead and garnish with a little bit of parsley. Now, some folks would probably want to do some thyme or something of the sort, but that's your chicken apple sauté.
Great. Remember, the parsley is full of nutrients as well, so don't leave it on the plate as a garnish. It is part of the meal. Well, that finishes that recipe. We're really glad that you were able to stop in, and we appreciate you taking the time to come and join us. And that's this week's episode of What's Cooking, New All?